Hello, everyone, and welcome to the AI Talk Show. I'm Asha Saxena, and today we're diving into a topic that is at the heart of business transformation. We talk about business transformation, we talk about AI, but really the value comes when we can see a tangible growth, revenue growth, reshaping how the organization can sell, scale, and succeed. And for years, revenue growth was driven by intuition or experience. We'll say, this is what the sales team wants, or this is what we see our trends going, and that's where we would move ahead. Data often lag behind decision making. And now that we think about AI is changing the equation. We're now entering the era where we are guided by selling, we're data driven insight. And we have all these CRMs and technology that can help us and help our teams to empower, to anticipate what customer needs are. I love these examples of Netflix and Amazon that is actually tracking what you like, what you don't like. They can forecast with precision. They can make decisions faster, smarter, and maybe more human-centric decisions, where we are still keeping humans in the center of what the humans really want. AI is not replacing sales strategy. It's elevating it, turning intuition into intelligence and insights into impact. Even though these sounds like buzzwords, but truly what we are looking at when we think about AI is, can AI help integrate these technologies and make sure it can make us stronger, better at what we do? It's about, can we trust the data we're looking at? We still are concerned about ethics, and we're still concerned about the human connection at the center of how we grow our organization. But I'm so glad we have our guest here, Cindy Gordon, who's the CEO and founder of SalesChoice, a global pioneer in AI-driven revenue intelligence and leading voice in responsible innovation. So as we get started to talk about an important topic of transformation in revenue, in growth of organization, Cindy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Asha. It's just great to be here on a Friday afternoon, and it's a little bit chilly in Toronto, Canada.
We talk about, when we talk about AI, we're always talking about, is AI truly giving us value or not? There's a lot of times we talk about AI can optimize, can optimize operations and give us a more efficiency. And as we think about innovation, a lot of companies think about innovation and put it on the back seat. But when you are working with early innovators in AI in sales and revenue side for optimizing sales and revenue, how do you see the data intelligence transforming organization, and especially from your perspective, when you look at organization, sales strategy, forecasting, customer engagement, because that becomes a really great use case. So take us to the journey as you work with organization and you see the impact of AI. And one thing I would say is, before we jump into the topic, tell us a little bit about your background and then jump into the topic.
Sure. Well, first of all, background is just check on OpenAI. I think these days seems to know more about me than I know about myself, which is kind of interesting. Background as educated in complexity science and social network optimization and transformation theory, I would say. Was an executive in major brands like Accenture, Citicorp, venture capitalist, came from an entrepreneurial family and always wanted to start a company. So this foray has really been about bringing a lot of those other skills into solving complex use cases. And you step back and you think about what knowledge domain you have. And for me, it was always about growth. How do you drive more growth? And so there's a lot of good data in sales and customer relationship management infrastructures because they've been there for quite some time. And I underscore, good. I didn't say great, right? There's
Yep.
always so many issues in AI on the quality of the data sets, right? But yeah, that's the background, but well published, very curious person, really value doing things the right way, and integrated design thinking, I think, has probably been our claim, and my claim throughout my life history, right? Is how do you
Yeah.
put all the right pieces together to solve the problem, and not being afraid to, look around the edges, right?
Yeah.
Not a technology-led leader. I'm very much from a what is the problem? What is the business, the challenge? Is the even organization ready to drive that kind of initiative, and, ensuring that the right thinking is around before you start executing foolishly a little bit.
Yeah, no, I feel that since the large language models came into existence, everybody wants to jump into it, and everybody's thinking about, can I create a conversational chatbot, or can I go into, my own internal LLMs to find information? There was a great story which I heard where organization is implementing the LLM, and one of the employees asked the internal LLM, uh, how many vacation days do I have? And it said 45 when it only had 5. So the data is the core, because if the data is not accurate, you're going to get the wrong answers. And they
Yeah.
had to pause and clean up. But that's a great example that when you don't have the right foundation, the AI is not going to give you the right answer.
Yeah, yeah, and that's probably the biggest struggle to your earlier question. You think about the journey, that's point number one. Where is the data in a good enough shape to even bother trying to solve the problem? But it always has to start with a strategic conversation.
Yeah,
Most large organizations have been applying AI for a long time, but more on traditional predictive modeling, right? But not necessarily the generative AI side. And you're absolutely right. The war of the LLMs is well underway, right? And we all know that people are being fairly careful about where they're pointing these enablements, and in uncontrolled environments where, the knowledge that's in the organization is also being protected and not fueling a vendor's LLM. So there's all these partitioning thinking that has to go on to ensure that, the company's data is protected, right?
exactly. We just finished our summit and gala. And in the summit, one of the speakers, I mean, quite a few speakers touched upon this, creating the foundation to be right. And the book I wrote, the AI Factor, I also talk about, thinking about what your business problem is, assess your business where you are before you get started. And the four quadrant I talk about is the optimizer, thinking about where you need to optimize, innovator, where you need to innovate, extender, where you need to have a market reach, and then multiplier, how to change the business model. When you work with organizations, can you talk a little bit about how AI is being used in sales and marketing, and what should organization be thinking about as they're thinking about implementing AI within sales and marketing organizations?
Well, I think on the marketing side where, we don't spend our time in our company as much we spend more on the sales side, but just a few quick points. On the marketing sides, it's always been around demand gen, right?
Yeah.
And trying to identify which particular leads are, well along the journey so that they can move over to a potential sales conversion, right? So those demand gen stimulation signals. And I think we all have learned that email marketing is almost dead.
Yeah. Oh,
And it's
yeah.
so inundated. And so I do think that a lot of the demand gen approaches, people are really rethinking harder of where those dollars are. And I think we're seeing a conversion to real conferences like the Gala, networks of substance, getting people eyeball to eyeballs to have genuine, authentic conversations. So I think the whole marketing, I'm just going to use the word racket, if you don't mind, is going through some rethink. That being said, moving the clarity of the buyer profiles into the personas, that insight intelligence is, whatever you can pull from the World Wide Web, is tremendously insightful for salespeople. So if we go into the sales side of things where we specialize, we focus more on a very specific use cases. As the data flows in from the demand gen side, or whether you're using Pardot or whether you're using, which is one of the Salesforce solutions, or Eloqua or whatever, it doesn't really matter, on Marketo. We say thank you very much, but then we apply, looking over all the historical wins and losses, in terms of the opportunities over the period, and we reclassify and we bring the patterns into another set of, I call it accuracy. And we're getting to levels of 95% accuracy at the top of the funnel. So think, but it has to be for large volumes of data, whether this one will, succeed or not. Because if people are chasing, 50 opportunities, sometimes people have more, they get lost, right? And you want to make sure that you are focused on the best possibilities with the best signals to win. So that is also comfort for CFOs. And we all know sales CROs are always far too optimistic in their outlooks, right? It's a
Yeah,
racket. So that's where we specialize. And then the playbooks. What are the reasons underneath that? And probably the most distinctive point is we um, give clarity on the data completeness. So we identify the most significant patterns and we say, this is, with heat maps, red, yellow, green, are you in good shape or not? So we move the organizations up in data quality and accuracy to fuel the model, and we have an audit trail, which I think we're the only ones that says, did we say what was going to happen? Did it happen? Yes or no? And that we count, and then it reinforms the algorithm, and our scientists look more closely at the reasons to keep driving that precision. So, when you get to the levels that we're at, then you start thinking, you can think even more creatively, right? Which is, okay, now it's the coaching. So
right.
you know that the signals are right, but how can you coach back? Because sometimes people don't let go. Salespeople still think that they're going to outwit the AI. And what we've seen now in some of the higher performer reps, they're now accepting, but it's taken them a couple of years to say, you know what, this little algorithm is more accurate at what I should do. So we're gonna move into a place where there's human and AI as pals, right?
Right.
Uh, Not there to replace you, but we're there to really help you, improve. And I think we'll move into a whole gamification, exciting side, that's even more chatty. Especially with virtual avatars and things. So, it's we're going through this change, but back to the earlier discussion, there's no point playing unless the data is in good shape. And volume is important for AI. AI is not a small volume game, right? It's important that people understand that. Otherwise they have to make synthetic data, but that's not going to necessarily help you in sales, right? Because
Yeah.
you need real data to help you.
Now, I think you bring up a really good point is that, AI can only give you the solution or give you uncover the insight, but what do you do with it as human becomes really, really critical. So when you think about automation is great, but where is the connection? And there's so much conversation around AI, focusing on automation that I do believe that, as you touched upon, the real opportunity is when you're amplifying the human capability. What do these big opportunities for organization is to use AI, not just for automating the task, but also enhancing the decision making or what the customer connections are. The companies who are actually doing this, integrating the behavioral data and machine learning, are really creating the experience for both intelligent and making it deeply human. Have you seen in the organization or some real use cases where you've seen a successful story where you've learned about not just the automation but also the human intuition getting combined?
Well, we built out a new capability, bringing mood and how sales professionals are feeling. And so mood can correlate to win rates, right? So that's a very new feature. So it's going to be interesting. So, salespeople pausing in the morning to say how they're feeling and how they're starting their day, and then analyzing the data in relationship to win rates, performance rates, then correlating that to health and wellness trends, i.e., you know, number of days people are sick, leave
Yeah.
of absences, increasing health claims. So the main point I'm trying to make is as one precision item gets identified, you can start adding on other signals, right? And that's
Yeah.
the interesting thing that's happening as it relates to the behavioral sciences. There's a lot of, like one of our partners is a company called IntroHive, and what they do is they analyze the relationship patterns and the depth. So more social networking theory constructs and looking at the email interactions, number calendars and kind of looking at, I call it the data hugging, the relationship hugging attributions.
Yeah.
And we fed that into our AI model because they've got an install. And what was interesting is most significant pattern. And not a surprise when you think about as humans. Like, in other words, if I sent you an email, you respond, let's say in a minute or in a text message. Well, you're making choices of who's important. And so in sales, it's a series of activities and tight, synchronization across different stakeholders. And if you can look at all of those things and you see this density, well, there's activity that you should feel confident versus dead space, dead space, dead space, not recency, even the tonality. So that whole area of relationship and behavioral intelligence is just a really fascinating area. And that's a nice thing where, humans, in terms of how we think and AI, but AI can kind of deal with that. It's almost, I think maybe with also thinking about the spatial intelligence, which is that whole area that's now, ramping, right? We're seeing people
Yeah.
leave you're just leaving Meta to start up a new company. So that whole 3D spatial thinking is the world we're going in. So even though we're thinking about Gen AI is just one piece of the puzzle. And if
Right.
all comes together, which wow.
Yeah, you know what I'm excited about is the whole agentic world that can actually do all the manual work, automate my manual tasks so that I can focus on the important tasks. And I think when you're thinking about sales organization, a lot of times salespeople are bogged down with the CRM entries and the admin work they have to really, focus on, while they should be focusing on relationship. They should be focusing on having a technology that can give them, predict analytics for them or understand what the
Yeah.
human connection is for their customers. But there's so many opportunities, Cindy. I feel like, you touched upon gamifying, you touched upon, understanding the human sentiment and understanding where your wealth of connections are sitting in. So I think the potential of AI to build, the motivation, trust, performance in sales team, where leadership can ensure that AI is not just a surveillance but also a support. It's a trusted co-pilot that empowers the teams. You are looking at this as of course, from the lens of optimism, or how should the sales organization be ready for this new era of AI and take advantage of it?
Well, I think first of all, the CEOs have a responsibility on the board to ensure that their leadership team are leaders in digital transformation. Because to move and lead an organization forward, they really need to understand the power and really get their hands dirty.
Yeah.
We no longer can afford sales leaders that rely on rev ops to just give them reports. They've got to have their ability on the dials, on the analytics themselves, right? And so I think that it's really important that people understand they have responsibility to know the
Yeah.
facts and not be surface treaders. Um, so because the speed that we're moving at, those connections and knowing what's real or not is so invaluable. So people are looking for, I think, the right leadership with the right skills. And there's a lot of upgrading to do. Many sales professionals don't have the depth in analytics And that's a real gap in being able to lead in a world that's far more intelligent, right? Because there's more knowledge of statistical patterning and spatial recognition and concepts of density, as well as patterning recognition. And, yes, we rely on our gut a lot in relationships, and that intuition is definitely valuable, but it needs to be
Right.
balanced, right?
Yeah.
So I think most organizations that are progressives are recognizing the need for the upskilling. The job descriptions have to change.
Oh, yeah.
We've over-engineered too many KPIs in the sales profession as well. I think there's a real need to simplify. I think people, to your earlier point, I don't know of one CRO in a mid to large organization or director or manager that's not feeling the administrative burden. Will agentic AI be able to help? There's no question. However, you don't want every single employee building their own little agents. That's just going to
Yeah.
be
That's true.
so there's a lot of caution about like building agentic, it's like factories, but proven little agents and then moving them out. So, logical things like please, every time an email comes in, even though you can buy software, please just scrape all the information, feed it into Salesforce just to have a prompt. So there's a lot of things. So I think there'll be some displacement too of a lot of vendors with particular solutions, because as the NLP, you know, constructs, and people are going to build prompting libraries, right? Like here are the best prompts. They're also already happening for sales, for marketing, that we think are the best to use in the different use cases. But eventually, humans will know.
Yeah.
uh, and that's an exciting place to be. It's like we're all being painters with canvases, and it's like an impressionistic art piece of work, and eventually all the patterns come together. Because that's kind of like what agents, I think, are like. They're kind of like little gremlins all around the edges, and then eventually there's a bigger picture that's being formed. I think the question is it going to be a good picture, a bad picture, a really ugly picture? And I think organizations have to be really monitor, how things are coming together. I think that's one of the big risks we have right now is we're moving so fast that it's kind of hard to connect all the dots.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's moving so fast that I have, in our organization, WLDA, members are talking about how do we keep up? It's like so much is changing constantly. I mean, before you know it, there's a new feature, there's new offerings. I mean, just look at OpenAI. I mean, constant development and new browsers and new, features constantly coming up. So I agree with you. It's like before you, when you start using these tools, they're changed. So it's like now there's a new version of it. So really moving so fast. I don't think in our my career in last 30 years I've seen anything like this before. This is incredible times we are living in, and what a great opportunity for all of us to really see what is possible. I mean, really, truly, what is possible for you within your organization.
Very true,
And
Rasha.
I do think that it's like, how does leaders show up now? It's really about leadership in the age of AI. And as AI is going to become more and more embedded in business strategy, business operations, business innovation, I think it becomes really critical how we show up as business leaders. I love what you said is that look at the tool and how you can create those human connection, gamify it, understand your consumer, understand what you care about and who you're connecting with. So you have a lot more data to be able to figure out how you can excel now. You have got this superpower to really take your game up a notch. What I when I'm thinking about, from your experience, what are you seeing that executives or business leaders, how should they leverage AI to make it a true driver for revenue growth or competitiveness or long-term value? Because we talk about governance, we talk about ethical design, we talk about how leaders should, ensure the AI strategies actually deliver results. There's a lot of studies on MIT and McKinsey that no results. These AI technologies are not giving results. So what advice would you give to the leaders who are listening?
Well, I think first point is really be clear on your business strategy from the perspective of where the most important, I think you have to prioritize the processes that are going to drive the most value to apply AI. And so, if it's in the supply chain management side, like you can't do it all, but
Yeah,
go into an area that and be very clear about the use case. Is that use case to increase top line revenue or, or is it to, reduce operating costs? But be very clear and stay the course. Every single vendor, because everybody needs software to run their businesses. You
yeah,
know, if it's supply chain, maybe it's an SAP use case, right? But you need to work with the vendor, and in also, I think, also understand what your competitors are doing or other companies, and really bring those other executives together. Because I think it's a chance to learn together. So I think people have to step back and say, okay, we have our AI governance in place, which most large companies now do, right? We have different use cases with different return on investment outcomes. But most of them haven't set up deep, deep advisory groups, right?
yeah,
Like your community is helpful in that, but people could really strengthen to say, you know what, these are the kinds of advisors that I need around our organization to help us through the journey. And let's, I think involving their customers with them on that journey is so important because everybody's trying to learn. So I think part of it is you're not alone. And to
yeah,
think you can solve it by yourself is really naive thinking. And I think so what I'm seeing is, at the top, the board of directors are getting trained, the leadership's getting trained. People, as you know, are already putting in, there's lots of chief data officers. There's
yeah,
issues times because the chief data officers, depending on who they report to, if it's into the IS stream, that can have complexities. I think wise CEOs are ensuring that they're rethinking their IT functions. In other words, this is a legacy group over here, and this is digital modernization or transformation. Because if you
true.
try and upgrade everything all at once, it's just too big. And it attracts different people. There's still lots of COBOL out there, right?
Yes.
So,
Which is strange. Yeah, you would think that legacy systems have moved on, but no, there's so much information on it that it's hard.
there's tons of legacy. So,
Yeah,
I think a lot of it is just you have to be incredibly curious as a leader in these times, and you have to be incredibly, I think, courageous and transparent. Can't underscore that enough. And listen. You need to listen to so many different voices. And I think, we all know that organizations that grow and succeed is because they have built in cultural context of listening to diversity and inclusiveness. And you get the best thoughts, right? And you need to create that
yes,
psychological safety so that people voices can rise up, right? I think there's even a song, or maybe it's a musical, Rise Up. But I mean that very sincerely. Because one of the reasons that AI has failed in so many initiatives, and I think the global return on investments is about 4.7% right now
yeah,
globally. It's really low. It's less than 5%. And McKinsey just released another report, and not a surprise that the top areas where AI is performing well is in IT, right? In codification of code, marketing and sales is a higher return than others. HR is much further down the pathway. So I think going back to our earlier discussion, executives need to really be thinking through where are organizations driving return on investment. And that, there's a patterning there where people are proving out value. Well, double down and do a few things. Don't try and do it all. I
right.
think people that have put their arms around, try to put their arms on all the data reservoirs. It's, you know, get going, but don't try and, what do they say? Eat an elephant all in one meal. It's just
Yes, exactly. Little by little.
little by little. And I think that kind of prudent thinking and iterative thinking is wise. If you can afford to eat the elephant in one meal, well, but very few organizations have that elasticity and ability to do that, right?
I agree. I also say that the new currency is curiosity, knowing how to ask good questions. It's not about the answers, but it's really about the questions you're asking, the problem you're solving. Are you solving a problem that's worth solving? You have a superpower in your pocket. You have this amazing technology, but what problem do you really want to solve? And do you know what the value would be? How do you measure the value of this technology? So really thinking and being really conscious about understanding what the ROI is on this technology. What problem are you solving? Do you have the right stakeholders? So I want to thank you, Cindy. Always a pleasure to speak to you. I'm so glad you could make some time to come on the show and talk to the LinkedIn community. So thank you.
Thank you, Asha. It's lovely to be here.
And to me, what's clear from today's discussion is that AI isn't just changing how we sell or how we market or how we run our operation. It's how we're changing how we are going to lead, how we show up as leaders. If it's revenue, if it's operation, in the age of AI, it's no longer about just chasing number. It's about building systems of trust. It's about the intelligence and the human connection that scales sustainably. And I truly believe the organization that will thrive in this day and age is not the one who only run after AI as a black box of automation, but also think about the glass box of understanding. Is it transparent, ethical, and deeply aligned to what our customers and our employee value is? It's so great to have Cindy and thought leaders like Cindy who come and talk about the examples of how to innovate, how to make sure the innovation meets the intention. And when a powerful technology like AI or data science can integrate behavioral insight, and they all come together for the purpose of business growth. That's why we run these organizations, to build the intelligence and integrity. And to everybody who is listening, I want to thank you all for joining the AI Talk Show, because these conversations inspire new ideas. It's about how to use AI to elevate performance and purpose in your business. So what I'm looking for is for you to share your reflection in comments. Make sure you continue sharing your questions, asking good questions. I know the journey is ambitious because everybody's looking for a solution in AI, but I think journey is worth taking, because you have to continue moving forward and making sure you're making an impact. With that, I'm Asha Saxena. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you all next time. Thank you.